I'm then going to go ahead and bind on another attribute function, and we're going to change, in fact no we're not, we're going to change the text of the dialog. Now the div, this is what this is going to do, is place text in here. So we've already determined the title. We now want to go ahead and place text inside of here. So in jQuery we use the text function. So I'm just going to say settings were saved, for example. Okay, so now what's going to happen is we've changed the title and the text within this div. So now we've predefined what we want to display before we go ahead and display it. So now at the end of this we can use the dialog widget, and that will then substitute in them variables and then show the dialog. So now when we click save, we have saved and settings were saved. So we've now achieved a sort of like a global div that we can use for any dialog we want. Okay, so now what we want to do is take a look at some of the settings we can apply to this dialog box. First of all, it's important to note that our page is still active, so we can still click on specific things, and we might not want to be able to do that. So we're going to gradually go through and change this dialog to as you saw it in the first part of the tutorial, and I'll explain each option on the way so you'll know what to do with them and how to change them, and there are a variety of other options as well. Okay, so inside of here we want to go ahead and start to change our settings inside our dialog definition just here. So inside here we need some curly brackets. The first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and set my own predefined button or customized button, and that's going to be an OK button just here. So let's go ahead and the option buttons. Now this starts to look a bit tricky, so I'm going to pull this down here. In fact, no, let's keep that up there. I'm going to, okay, so let me start again. The buttons option takes more parameters inside curly brackets. So now I can start to create a function inside of here once I have predefined which button I want to be associated with which function. So I'm going to define a button OK. And then using a colon, I'm going to define a function here. And more curly brackets, and I'm going to pull this down. So now inside of here, this is what's going to happen when this OK button, we've given it the label OK, is pressed. So we've defined a button called OK, and then the function associated with this OK button goes here. What you can then do is you could go ahead and comma separate this here and create another button. So for example, not OK, you wouldn't have a button like that, but then you could define another function and so on, and then you could create more after that. But obviously for now we're just creating one button, which is OK. So I'm just going to test this, and I'm going to say alert hello. So now what's going to happen is we have this OK button that's appeared with our label. When I click on it, we have this dialog box saying hello. So we know that it's working, but what we want to happen is when we click OK, we want this to close. I know we already have the X button up here that we can press to close it off, but you might want to incorporate other buttons into this dialog that don't just close it, that might want to do something else. But for now, inside of here, instead of an alert dialog, I'm just going to demonstrate what we can do with closing this. So what we're going to do is the selector we're going to be using is this, so we're referencing the dialog itself, and then I'm just going to say .dialog close. So what that's going to do is that's going to close off this dialog. So let me just go ahead and refresh and click save. Now when we press OK, this closes. So we've determined that pressing OK is now going to close the dialog. And there are a variety of other options you can supply within here, but obviously for now this OK button is just going to close. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to supply some more options. So just after, you can see this is highlighted in red here, it's starting to look a bit messy. We're going to supply more options just here. So the first option I'm going to choose is close on escape. Now what close on escape does is it will actually close this dialog box if the user presses escape on their keyboard. So at the moment we can close it either here, we can close it either here, or you can have a variety of other buttons, or I'm just going to go ahead and press escape on my keyboard, which I've just done, and that has closed the dialog box. So by defining this option here, close on escape set to true, by default it's set to false, the user can press escape on their keyboard and that dialog box will close. So let's go ahead and define some more options. The other thing you'll notice with this is that it is draggable. We can drag it around the page, which might be a bit of a pain. We might not want to drag this around the page. If you had some perhaps content in here that you wanted the user to be able to move and work on more here, you're more than welcome to have it draggable, but for now I'm just creating a dialog box with a notification, so I want this to be not draggable, or not to be draggable. So I'm just going to simply define the draggable option, and I'm going to set this to false, quite simply. And now when I refresh, I can't actually drag it around. It won't let me drag it. Trying to click won't work. The other problem we have is that this dialog is now resizable. I can resize it from the top, I can resize it from the sides, I can resize it using this, not keeping an aspect ratio. Now there are a variety of options you can do if you would like the user to be able to resize a dialog box. You can set a minimum height and a minimum width. We looked at the jQuery interactions and the draggable interaction, the resizable interaction in jQuery UI, which allowed us to set a minimum width and a minimum height that a particular element can be resized to. In this case, we don't really want the user to be resizing this dialog box around. We can either set or keep it at a specific size. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to UI.js and I'm going to supply resizable false. So I'm changing resizable, the ability to resize it, to false. So now when I refresh, the first thing you'll notice is this little resize icon has gone, and now we can't move it and we can't resize it. So it's just a static dialog box in the middle of the page. And we can go ahead and